with game 2 if they have something that different prepared for us.
I think it's time for some Pirate on the Rift. I think some Gangplank in the first round is likely to adjust expectations going into game number 2. We'll see if there'll be any big adjustments in the picks and bans. Pretty standard in game number 1. Kongdoo banned the Kai'Sa on red side in this spot. They do again, so far no changes. Let's see if any champions from game 1 crop up in these first round bans.
Now, we liked MVP coming with the Camille with the split push was kind of the biggest success point when it came to the victory they got in game 1 over Kongdoo Monster. So does that mean that MVP wants to kind of go for, if it's not broke, don't fix it? Or are we going to just go for the split push once again? But at the same time, are Kongdoo just going to go for counter for that?
Well, Kongdoo had the first chance to make an adjustment, and you see the one champion that changes the Karma ban. In this spot, it was Varus banning away another strong laning AD carry. But the flex can still happen, because guess who subs in pretty well for Karma in this bizarre world we live in? It is in fact Sion. It's been played in the pro level at 4 different roles. Mid and top lane is what we're expecting in this particular series. They take the flex pick Sion on the blue side, and now it's on Kongdoo Monster to make their adjustments.
Now we see Varus not banned this time around for game 2. That means that they do have the priority onto Soul if he does decide to play that. Felt like Xayah wasn't the problem one in game 1 because he felt like he did his part in putting out the damage, especially around that Baron pit. But he wants to go for a little bit different approach, especially with the Tahm Kench kind of being picked out for Secret here.
But if you take a bit of a step back and think about what did happen in game number 1. Kongdoo double banned AD carry saying you won't have lane priority, no Varus. And then they took the Xayah, and they did lose 2v2. They lost the turret basically with no interaction to the Ezreal lane. So now they're saying, okay, we need to have lane priority. No champion you can lock in realistically has lane priority on the Varus. Caitlyn is gone. There's other choices you can consider, but you see that the choice here on MVP side is seeming to be something a bit more risky, like the Kog'Maw, for example. So now Kongdoo go for lane priority and say, we'll have the pushing advantage in the 2v2. We have more windows of power, and that's why the Varus first round comes out from them.
Okay, we're going to actually see the last minute switch to Xayah, and that will be kind of MVP taking the approach that we're not going to lose to you in lane. Going to go for that same head-to-head fight when it comes to their early kind of lane pressure they can both kind of put in together.
Small discrepancy on this patch on 8.6's Rage Blade is super high power and cheap. Varus goes for the Rage Blade. Xayah needs more time to get going, so it does mean there's going to be a little bit of a hump there compared to the one-item power spike on the side of Varus. And I mentioned the Pirate. The Pirate does show up in the first round here for Kongdoo Monster. At this pick, the final pick on red side in the first round, you can also double ban to protect the Gangplank pick. And already you see the Vladimir. Let's see how they feel about the Camille, because I think GP actually does very well in that matchup, but it is something you can ban away to stop the leapfrog, and a leapfrog is well and truly gone.
Split push opportunity coming from Kongdoo. They want to keep it to themselves and not let anything from MVP go their route as they had in game 1. Feel like the kind of biggest loss that came from Kongdoo was from the split push that came with the Camille and the Karma. That's kind of what led on to what eventually became the loss.
On the conventional side, I agree with you, but MVP have always got that 130 champion Ocean to throw in some crazy stuff. So we'll see where we're at. Remember, top lane Cassio or Lucian to bust the Gangplank is possible on the side of MVP, or we could see the Sion in top lane, and I mentioned the Lucian, that would mean Sion mid lane. See if that is going to be the choice here from MVP. We've already seen it once this tournament. Lucian very strong in the 1v1. This should be moving away. This is what was seen early in the season as a strong matchup, but gradually Gangplank was doing better and better. Does have lane control. MVP will still feel pretty good about the Gnar. They don't go full Lucian, and amazingly, through 5 bans, the Sejuani, the 9-2 Sejuani on a struggling MVP for Beyond is available to be locked up.
So it seems like more of a kind of a team fight priority for MVP this time around with the Sejuani and the Gnar being picked here. And Edge, you know, you talked about with being picked on the mid lane is going to be the last pick picked here. And we've seen this before. We've seen the Talon make its debut, but it's going to go for a little bit of Azir pick, just back and forth, and we're going to see how that pick turns out. But it's going to be a last interesting pick to see. It is going to be the Azir for the last pick for Edge, and how does that really interact with all the picks they have picked so far?
My eyes are getting fully dilated, being like, are we sure about Talon into mid lane Sion? That sounds awful. And they agree. They move away from that one. It's going to be the Azir. First Azir we're seeing in a long while here. Insane 5v5 from Kongdoo Monster. It's just how do they get to those 5v5s, Joel? Because while MVP have done something different, you look at their side, you see Sion mid lane, you don't need to be a challenge analyst to know they're shooting once again for the mid game. They're going for fights early when something like the Banner of Command against the Azir, Frozen Heart, before the Gangplank gets 3 items, they're still going to be fighting with power. However, the Xayah definitely takes a little bit longer. So there's a little bit of a disagreement between the Xayah AD carry and the rest of the comp, but the identity, the mind identity, what it's drafted for, MVP still want to fight early and avoid 5v5s in the late game.
Seems like ADD on the top lane will kind of be prioritized towards the team fights a little bit more than last game with kind of Gnar compared to Camille.
Sure.
A less priority on that split push, but we're going to see kind of Gangplank might have to do a little bit of own split pushing, kind of join back, kind of take back on what they have been dealt with in Game 1 and bring that back in Game 2. Hopefully do a little split pushing themselves.
MVP have a lot of force, and they know when to force. They know about mid-game force. They've got it everywhere. Even Sion can roll his way down the river and get those ganks on. And Kongdoo Monster, they got the S word. It's not a swear word, it's scaling on their side. But they couldn't quite make the scaling work in game number 1. Let's see if the adjustments can come in the early game here, game number 2. They don't have a leapfrog this time. We'll see how MVP can wield their power, guys. Thank you for joining us. It's the second game in this promotion tournament. They win here, Kongdoo Monster. They can make it a 1-1. They can make it a full 5-game series. If not, MVP will be on match point to continue to roll forward.
We're going to see how that game rolls forward with Game 2. We're going to get right underway, see how Kongdoo Monster, can they bring a game back? We're going to find out after going 1 down. Game 2 will come very underway.
We are game number 2. Joel Sophie, our usual translator, now LCK caster, joining me for Kongdoo Monster versus MVP. Kongdoo on the back foot. You'd have to feel they'd be frustrated. About 10 to 15 minutes between game start and game end, where they would have just been frustrated. Man, we were so close. Xayah got the triple kill. We were ready to go, but I'm sure the coach could have pulled them back and said, that was honestly about the macro play. That was honestly about MVP minimizing how strong your 5v5 was. Note that Kongdoo Monster had game selection and chose red side. Joel, we might actually have a series where MVP's on blue every game of the series because they chose blue in game number 1.
It just seems like the priority has changed over the months of how important blue is for certain teams, but it seems like MVP still likening the left side of the map and still felt like that's a little more value to what the composition they want to bring to their series. But you talk about what game 1 meant for Kongdoo is that they were so close to getting the win and after they got the Baron and the triple kill from Xayah, but you talk about they losing so much earlier in the game with all the way to the inhibitor wait gone. So after that, you know, you just have to talk about what you lost so early and so much in the early game. You just can't bring it back and forth as easily.
But I think every team reacts differently, and honestly, every person reacts differently to near misses. If you're that close to an A+, you get the A. Are you content with your achievement, or are you thinking about what more you could have done? Are you frustrated, or are you pumped? And that is kind of the thing there. And for Kongdoo Monster, sadly, given that they're in the promotion tournament, we're a long way away from the A+ grade. They just want to make the passing grade. They just want to make it to LCK Summer, but sadly, that sort of a result has been too often cropping up for them. They do have a bit of a spirit animal here. They do have Roach on the Gangplank, and it's been a good luck charm for them in the past. We'll see if they can make plays around the mid game where we said MVP have the advantage with the Sion mid lane, specifically with the Cannon Barrage, because that ability alone can really turn things that look pretty MVP favored in the early game.
And it has to be MVP just pulling through once again. Definitely wanting a game 2 victory to extend them over to a double advantage with a 2-0 lead is what they want for MVP, but at the same time, it's going to have to be done through a different maneuver than what they achieved in game 1. It's going to have to be more reliant on team fights, and you're not going to get the free inhibitor this time, especially with the lack of Camille that has been banned away from Kongdoo. Feel like that was the biggest thing that has affected their kind of result away from them.
So we're talking about lane priority. Now we'll have lane priority on GP. It's the sort of lane where GP can go either Klepto or for the Resolve tree into the Grassy Undying. This time Roach is going Grassy Undying, saying, I don't want to let you just push in and take cheeky cues and hope that I pilfer some items. Usually when you go resolve tree, you want the wave to be a bit more in the middle of the lane and not just trying to be poking for gold generation. So it's a little bit less on that scaling word that we were talking about earlier. You always get people into a bit of a jumble. Get more lane control, but still going to be Gnar pushing up. In the mid lane, Sion's got priority on basically everyone, such as mid lane Sion. Happy fun times for everybody involved. And bot lane, for now, the Varus pushing up. We mentioned already, the Varus priority banned away in game 1 by Kongdoo on red, picked by Kongdoo on red in game number 2, is to get them some pressure. They do have that pressure bot side. Waiting to see what the junglers make of it. We saw some pretty frustrated junglers in game number 1, Joel. They were so close. We saw Beyond open up for what? 10, 12 elastic slingshots before he actually got his first gank on.
And same for Raze as well. I mean, with the Skarner, got that smiles on his face for that flash ultimate as soon as he turned to level 6. But after that, a Quicksilver Sash, ultimate counter to what a ultimate can do from the Skarner. Kind of happy days were over since then from Skarner. But you do say with Zac, having picked up by Raze this time around, what does that mean going forward with kind of the lack of gank opportunities that will come from all the lanes here?
That is a question I'm happy to be seeing resolved. In the late game, I feel like Zac has a lovely time jumping in. He can scoop out someone like the Xayah, obviously the true gold standard there. It's a very long engage range from him, and good CC on the rest of the team.
Okay,
speaking of engage, a lot of people talk, it's going to be a 2v2.
Okay, first gank here, Beyond does not see Raze coming through. That's going to be going very aggressive here with Beyond, taking a lot of turret shots, and that will be additional damage, but does not lead to a kill right away. So Roach taking the orange and also escaping with Valor, and that's going to be him safe for now, but at the same time, Beyond had to use his flash to get out of the kind of the surprise entrance coming from the Zac from the other side.
And I love the zoom out by the observer there, because it was very much a bit of an informational advantage for Roach. The reason why he held on to the orange for so long is that Zac's going to come in with pretty low damage. They couldn't actually get a kill on the turnaround unless MVP turret dive. And of course you get more healing out of the orange the lower you are in health. So he holds on to the cooldown. Raze doesn't have the damage to punish the attempt at a kill there, so we all back away. Ends up being very, very even. Kongdoo Monster will take that for now. But usually these Sion comps start to amp up post level 6. If you get double control ward, top side or bot side of mid, if you get mid lane priority with a Sion, we've mentioned it. You get your drifting shoes on, you do some Tokyo drifting all the way to top or bot lane, you can make some sick plays happen as the Sion.
As we see, Beyond not very successful in the first game. Thinking of doing a second one at the bot lane, but does back off, which means that the laning phase will be kind of even to all the lanes here, including the bot lane and mid lane you talk about. They're all at level 6 at the moment with Ian. So just going to be hurt here a little bit. AD just going to be pulling him in.
Damage trade there. That's just a lot about being an alpha in the lane and getting some damage onto Roach. Obviously no kill pressure onto a Gangplank at this point in time. Should also notice that CS values for the Gangplank are going to be a bit more important. There's no kleptomancy to make up that little bit of cheating. The Bitcoin market has crashed for Gangplank on this particular game. He's off that train. His Soto is stuck, sadly. No Bitcoin for him, so going to be very much more honest scaling here from Roach.
Quite even right now on the top lane with the Gnar and also the Gangplank. Pretty even at 51 to 46 as we speak. But ADD seems like he's been pushing for days here and has not really backed off for any instances here. And Raze, you know, Zac, when you're coming in so aggressively here with Ian now in this push.
We talked about Ian going for those roams. He's going for that top lane roam. Can they tussle up Roach? Here's the attempt with the ultimate.
He's going to go to the ultimate right away. Puts the orange down, and that's going to be one more going through it.
ADD
just trying to go all in. Does turn into Maganar just in time. And that will be the first blood going on to ADD. Very nice timing with the Maganar that came just in time to save himself in the end.
Oh man, it was just in time, like you say. Even the transformation needed to be there to stop being a 1-for-1. It does end up being a 1-for-0, and Raze, that's an Ocean Drake. Those are pretty hard to take. Does draw over edge. They should be able to eventually take this one out. Soul's going to come as well.
Even with things spotted right there through a ward, they're still going to go for it with all the advantages that can come from a jungle in the bot lane. And Raze, the rest of the Kongdoo Monster, is going to take the first objective again in this game 2 here after being suffering from a very close effort from Roach that could have turned into a 1v1 scenario in the top lane game.
I mean, it was just close to being executed on the bot side, Joe. I was remembering the blank and peanut executes we've had in the last 6 months. Nothing happens there. The Ocean Drake is a pretty nice win. And remember that Roach didn't have flash on that turret dive, so it was a sort of turret dive that was likely to bear fruit for the side of MVP still. That's what you want to do when you have the Scion, you have lane priority, you can roam, your turret dives are insane with all the different CCs. So both teams doing what they wanted to do. We'll see if the game plan changes in about 5 minutes time though, as it will be Infernal as a second spawn.
See Beyond right there. Just trying to hand off the blue with Raze. Just peeking out, spying out every moment in time. Just going to use the ultimate to get him off. And that's going to be the ultimate coming in from the Tahm Kench, and that's going to be a 4v1 scenario now for Kongdoo Monster, who's trying to get this kill onto Ian. Very successful in doing that. Talk about the flash being used earlier in that top gank when he did for the rotation there. Ian's not going to have any escape tool to get out for that one.
That's a really big investment though by the bot lane of Kongdoo Monster. They clearly don't have a second plan to take the mid lane turret to justify this. They will lose CS in the bot side. Could argue that Soul was in an awkward spot in terms of items. He doesn't have the Rage Blade yet, so he wasn't that unhappy to make a silent, but he does get the kill, so that part you feel good about if you're Kongdoo. Wave not pushed too aggressively, so they don't actually pay too much. What was a pretty severe investment for just one kill. They back away, and, well, Ian's dead, so definitely glory in that particular play.
You also see Beyond picking up that blue buff instead of his mid lane, who he was initially trying to give it to, but once again, like you said, minor wins coming from Kongdoo Monster. They've had that in Game 1 as well. Did not translate into further victories. That's kind of what this team has been looking out for, especially in Game 1 where they lost so much in terms of macro plays that have been outplayed. Coming from MVP here. This time around, trying to put a little more fight, put a little more aggression to what they're trying to represent here. Raze coming into top lane here. While the Rift Herald is still being scouted by the Sejuani. Looks like he's going to get it with vision absolutely absent coming from Kongdoo Monster here.
It's a little bit nitpicky, but you do notice that the banner command is going to be a little bit delayed. Coming in from Sion, went for the Catalyst for laning phase, the Merc Treads, probably because he died and wanted to buy something. When he went back, we do see mid lane Sion's rush banner command very early, and this one going to be a little bit delayed. Roach feeling just how damn annoying Anar is.
Maybe just going to just poke him out.
I mean, you can just grin and bear it. That's all you can do is the gangplank. That's the reality of landing into this Gnar.
Okay, we're going to see some backup coming in. Another 4-man rotation here.
The Conga line is going to be spotted now. First Raze.
So Ward spots him right there. I don't think he saw Varus and Tahm Kench, which is going to be seen now, but you talk about all the empty spots coming from that bot lane.
This minimap was pretty damn barren if you were the side of ADD, wondering where the enemy was, but what's a good way to make the enemy react? It's actually going to be Rift Herald in the mid. They're trying to make a proactive play with the Cannon Barrage on the bot lane wave, but the Rift Herald muddies this a little bit. Let's see if Kongdoo Monster can actually get anything.
Now line clear coming in. Coming from the Azir, it's going to be good enough to wipe out the Rift Herald before it does get enough damage onto the tower, or will it? We're going to see still putting a lot of damage onto the mid tower. He's going to just get it. He's going to be just enough to clear him out, and even the Gangplank ultimate trying to slow down the push coming from the bot lane from MVP, which means that the top lane turret, the first turret, will go towards the side of Kongdoo here.
Kongdoo's looking to make it a very long map on the top side because they know they're losing the race. Mid lane's almost dead. Bot lane turret will go down. They're going for a dive as well, but Chains of Corruption do miss.
You can see a 4-man push onto the second tier. Top turret here, and Soul just going to outrange the Gnar for the time being, and very aggressively going forward is ADD against the 4-man of Kongdoo Monster. In the meantime, we see MVP with Pilot, pushing with the Xayah, very fast line clear push, and it's going to be the end of it for now. Not going to go for further push, as we do see Kongdoo Monster, all 4 members, just backing out from the top lane once again.
Definitely League of wave clear, line clear if you're a Korean. That's a big thing that we always talk about in this current meta, and there seems to be a lot of it on both sides. Kongdoo Monster, I think, felt a bit sheepish when they realized they might lose 2 turrets. That's why they pushed on to the secondary one. But Sion has priority in mid lane, so he can just walk over. Didn't even have to ult over and try and make a play, so it's pretty low commitment. They don't lose the inner turret, and even if the inner turret was picked up, it's very hard to return to that when you've already lost your mid lane turret. So a lot of trades here. Kongdoo Monster a little bit more desperate. I think it's a bit weird that they've kind of skipped out on the 2v2 laning after locking in the Varus, and also their plays when it comes to the Tahm Kench are a bit more telegraphed because they're kind of off the riff for the better part of 30 to 40 seconds before anything happens on the map. Of course, this is a bit of a new thing for them. They weren't playing this Tahm Kench rotational style as much during the regular season. It's more about getting Soul through laning phase in the 2v2. Speaking of the rotational plays, Soul and Secret will occupy the mid lane. trying to find somewhere safe for Soul to farm, and we finally return to some normalcy after all these lane swaps.
See, still being annoyed here by the Gnar. It's gonna be them. Soul just trying to go 2v1 here. Just gonna put some pog shots onto Pilot there, but otherwise Raze and the rest of Kongdoo Monster still trying to retain some type of normalcy, as you just say. It's gonna be them feeling good for now that they retained their mid lane turn, as you see on the screen. And first tier bot turret is the only thing they lost for the time being. They're gonna just try to go for a second Drake if they can.
Kongdoo Monster did lose a lot of control around bot side because they were playing top side, so the Infernal isn't super easy for them to get. They've lost the Rift Scuttler. We know there's control wards. And we're near where the Scion is in, so it's actually pretty risky from Kongdoo. Usually when you have Varus bot lane in this matchup, you just plug and play, hey, we control bot side of the map, we had the Varus. Because of where the game went, their decisions, they don't. Need to be a bit more on point at how they set up. They would love an Infernal Drake. But we can see very clearly that MVP are not giving away any freebies.
They're heading back to it. It's still a lot of vision on there. Zach's gonna go in aggressively. The ultimate coming from the Gangplank, and that's gonna be a lot of damage coming from the
Scion!
ultimate does come in. Scion comes from the other side with ADD coming in with the teleport, and Varus is very exposed right now. Edge is gonna go down to the Gnar right now, and Raze just going forward. Gonna be the second casualty coming from Kongdoo Monster, and that's gonna be the initiate they're gonna regret for the time being.
Let's see if they can finish off the Bloblets. They do! They get 2 kills here to the side of MVP. They lose Beyond through it. There's no smites available. Don't know what that means for the Infernal. But MVP trade up, and at minimum, they want this mid lane out of turret.
And just go for it here. Sejuani does go down, but otherwise a very good win coming from MVP there, and another turret going down, and that's going to be the mid turret that almost has fallen from their first attempt at her push, but it's going to be them now prioritizing this bot turret here after this Infernal trade upgrade is taken. After being contested so much coming from Kongdoo, doesn't really get the fight they wanted, and you talked about their early fights. This timing around the 15-minute mark being such stronger to MVP before we get to the late game. Going to see a win coming into MVP from good rotations.
And you could probably hear from my voice when I was talking about the plays of the Abyssal Voyage, Kongdoo Monster going top lane, that I was surprised, because again, you pick Varus, Tahm Kench. The enemy should be getting out of your lane. It should be your yard, not these young bucks on the side of MVP. But they chose to go top side, surrender a lot of control around bot side, and then Scion rolled in. They were set up to lose that fight. Kongdoo, if they really wanted the Infernal Drake, stay bot side. If the enemy leaves, whatever, you might lose a Rift Herald. You're definitely going to get the Infernal. But Kongdoo Monster tried to be a bit too flashy. They tried to take the top lane advantage and then just come back and say, oh, nothing changes, bot side will be fine. They don't control the river like they did minutes ago because of their roams. So as this starts, it looks pretty even. Scion rolls in. Edge almost dies straight up in CC duration. He may be available to live, but he does no damage in the fight. Gangplank, Tahm Kench, and Varus aren't going to be able to fight 3v4 or 3v5 outnumbered. Ends up being a massacre for the side of MVP and the Infernal Drake and mid lane turret off the bat.
You also have to mention the fact that ADD came a lot quicker than what the opposing top laner did with Roach there, and even the ultimate has been invested, but it really doesn't contribute to the fact to an even team fight when you have a top laner that enters in about 10 seconds after the initial teleport that did come from ADD there.
Damn, look at the total damage. Now, this is not in the fight. I thought this was in the fight, and I was like, damn, that's a Gnar fight. But remember, this is total damage dealt in the entire game. And, well, Gnar has been a ranged auto attacker, making the GP's life hell, so it makes sense that he has the most damage dealt. Coming back to the Gnar, I think the point you raised there is an important one. When Gnar teleports in, stuff goes down. When Gangplank teleports in, he teleports, and then he would like to put down some barrels. Could you hold on for a moment? There's kind of a technical intermission before Gangplank's really online in the fight. It's not one of his strengths. He does basically everything else well, and he can just throw an ultimate and not join. But if he's actually teleporting, not going to be a super happy time. So at the end of the day, MVP, we already mentioned, they want to fight in the mid game. They got an entrance to the fight because we saw the Scion come straight up the river. And Kongdoo Monster opt into a fight they were set up to lose, and they do lose.
Really is in. After taking the Ocean Drake for the first Drake of the game, they lose the bot turret, which doesn't give them a lot of advantage moving forward with the second Drake. That was the Infernal. End up losing that one. Gonna be onto a third Drake here. That will be the Ocean coming in. So even if Kongdoo wants to get the next Drake, they will not be feeling as happy as if they could have got the Infernal Drake in the second one.
But I bet you and I are feeling happy because I spy with my little eye a recurve bow in the inventory of the Gnar. Are we going Rage Blade second here? That was the big pick that Sword was using a few days ago. We saw it in the LPL last night as well. That seems to be the new meta, this Rage Blade Gnar. There's a couple of different ways you could go, but I don't think it's going to be a wit's end on the side of the Gnar. Usually against GP, we see a bit more of a tanky build and start teleporting. This tells me he just wants to frag the GP, kill him straight up in the 1v1.
And also helps to point out that he is on 3 kills with no deaths. A lot of gold advantage over every other player.
Snowball Rageblade, huh?
It really is, and you know, Gnar, when you do have a push that works out, you want to push it a little bit further, and we see that coming from ADD there. Be careful, as you say, we're going to find out what eventually that becomes, and Rageblade is going to be the kind of expected one to come out.
The recent one. I mean, we've seen Blade the Ruin King on Gnar before. There's many ways you can go, but again, that's my first thought because we saw it in this tournament and in the LPL just yesterday. Speaking of which, good multi-Twitch day, guys, on Riot Games. It is the LPL semi-final right now. I believe it started a couple of minutes ago. Rogue Warriors against EDG, who will face RNG in the final. Sadly, our boy Rookie Joel did not make it to a big event again. Always sad, as Rookie is seen as one of the big mid laners.
You always have to remind me. Sad days all over again.
I joined the LPL after. Sorry, I joined the LCK after Rookie had moved over. Got 1 season of LPL casting of Rookie, but otherwise been gate-kept for one of the best mid-lane talents in the world. In this particular game, in this particular series, MVP have a nice little lead early with this comp, but it's all about wielding it. Again, we think about late-game team fights, and it's a bonanza on the side of Kongdoo Monster. GP, Azir, monsters of team fight. Good CC from other members. Really nice setups here for the side of Kongdoo Monster. As for MVP, they've used their priority well, and there is that Rageblade. Now the Gangplank kind of puts up his hand and says, I need a bit of help over here. This split push thing, it's not working out.
Also, you have to observe the fact that all the kills right now from MVP are onto ADD, on the Gnar, so that means that the reliance onto the top laner is going to be very important for an MVP at this stage of the game, unless the other players can start grabbing some kills. But otherwise, Kongdoo Monster just focused on getting to the lake and where the real power does strike. So it's going to be just wave clear going on from both sides here with no significant fights. Kind of wanting a little bit more from MVP because they are a little bit stronger from where they are. Bithlefoot is just going to be going
interrupted.
Forward. That's going to be just going forward, and it's going to be interrupted. As you do say, Soul's just going to be exposed here behind Tom Kench, but teleport coming in is going to be cancelled from ADD. So otherwise, you talk about where the team fight really needed to happen for MVP. Doesn't really happen there, and Soul almost get picked off here.
And through all of that, the TP was cancelled. That's a little advantage. Abyssal Voyage is interrupted, as we were mentioning. I mean, there couldn't be an outnumbering on side, and honestly, he had pieced out. He had yelled cowards and jumped away. MVP now have the outer ring of turrets down, and Joel, point I wanted to touch on, because I always like to follow the logic when we have a bit of a breathing moment of how do you get back? Because Kongdoo Monster knows all of the information we're talking about. They're like, man, we're strong late game, guys, don't worry, go late, go late. Probably in Korean, maybe you can do a better approximation of what sort of comms you're hearing, but along those lines, the way you get to late is you fight for vision. When they were pushed up in mid lane before all that play, Varus and Tom Kench actually had very little information. They don't control the river around Baron buff that is spawned. MVP, they don't have the world's fastest Baron, but they certainly can tank it for days. Fighting for vision, stopping there being any free objectives is the focus for Kongdoo Monster. So no need to make the big plays on picks. Take a deep breath, come in with a friend, invade that river, and get some vision. That's what Kongdoo Monster needs to do.
Vision placement becomes a little bit difficult when you're down 3-1 turrets, though. You do have Kongdoo Monster who wants to keep it strong, but have nuisance like that coming from MVP, and that makes it a little more difficult to extend your vision a little bit across the half field line. But another Drake, as you do mention right here, will go over to MVP. So not the Inferno Drake that we saw in the second one coming around. That's going to be another Drake, another advantage going into MVP.
And maybe now we know it, Joel. Maybe now we know the way to actually get value.
Look at this.
We'll take a half step. We'll stop the analysis. A very creative Baron start. No information for MVP. They did not come from vision. They're trying to rush it down. Azir, good Baron damage. So does the Varus. Still no one's checking it.
Ian has no idea.
Max is
is
find
going out, and that's going to be a lot of damage already gone, and that's going to be the smite going through. Soldier's going to flash out of there. The Abyssal Voyage is going to save a little bit of members here, and that's going to be a huge win. Kind of unexpected one coming from Kongdoo, but that's going to be the one they can carry forward to the late game we've been talking about.
Kongdoo Monster, you sly dogs, getting over the wall. The Varus and the Azir putting out the big damage. MVP controlled so much of the map, they thought they were completely in the supremacy. But Kongdoo Monster, for the first time this season, pull wool over their eyes a little bit. They take the Baron, and now the map control that we said they need to get for fighting for vision, they've got super minions. They can actually hit the side lanes, and for once MVP, they're on the back foot.
And a very decisive call coming in from the Kongdoo Monster. Raising his boys, wanted to get the Baron right away at 23-minute mark, and they do get that done. And for the congratulations of what they just achieved.
Oh,
It's going to be a lot of
engaging.
Ian's just going to go in all by himself to the second tier turret, just going to knock him up for the time being. Gangplank ultimate is going to come through. Zach's just trying to do all he can. He's going to go on to Bloblets once again, and the rest of the 4 members of Edge just trying to just go for the damage here and feels like he can just kill AD doll right off the bat.
They're trying to push up forward. They're trying to make them pay for getting the Bloblets down. Big goal there for MVP. Take away some Baron buffs. Try to cause some disarray. The Kongdoo Monster push up. They've got the Baron buffs. Recall coming in from Gnar. Let's see how many turrets Kongdoo can pick up with this Baron buff power play.
Just trying to make the line clear
Soul's on the
as
front
best as
line.
they can, and Soul can feel like he can do that with the protection coming from the minions and also his teammates right along his path. But talk about the turrets they needed to take down. It's not going to be the case this time around with Kongdoo failing at their first push to get this initial mid turret down.
I don't think playing one lane is actually going to really lead to as much of a lead for Kongdoo as you might imagine. Of course, we know that there's 2 members in base, so it will have to be sacrificed. There was 4 members showing it's difficult to push forward, and Kongdoo Monster wants to make this an ARAM. They're happy to play one lane.
They see Gnar at the bot lane here, and that's going to prompt him for a further push here. Edge is just trying to go for the poke damage to make sure the line clear is not going to be happening from MP, but he just swallowed up here. Secret, and just get him out of there, and Raze gets himself out of there with the last slingshot.
But getting a low health turret with Baron is not enough. We always have to say how many turrets they get. They get 1 mid lane turret. They don't get the teleport that you rightly called was the big objective they were trying to force. AD hits the side lane, and in a minute's time, we already saw very clearly that honestly Gangplank can't lane. We've finally seen a build where the Gnar has been able to flex on Gangplanks like they were able to in the first week of the season. Because what, Joel, you were sitting there and watched Gangplank after Gangplank beat Gnar from week 3 to about week 9 of the season. The Rageblade build is new. He's doubling down on hit with the Blade of the Ruin King as well. And the way this build works is you auto-attack the turret for the first 6 stacks. Then if you turn onto the GP, you're getting 2 stacks for every hyper proc. Your Blade of the Ruin King is stacking instantly. Your Black Cleaver is at 5 stacks almost the entire time. Insane damage, and all you need is a minion wave and then a Gangplank, and they're in trouble.
But they're having the best they can to counter back for the push they have been taken forward, but it's going to be Raze here along with Gnar just going to be trying to push back. Victor Boy just going to come in here. ADD just going to be putting with all the damage that they could potentially got him, and that's going to be the first death. Coming for the Gnar here, and that's going to be the 4 men of Kongdoo Monster just trying to push a little bit further as they can. Roach brings the minions from the bot lane. Just going to get the first turret here in the bot lane. So in addition to the 2 turrets they did get in the mid lane, it's going to be the 3rd one coming in from this Baron power play from Kongdoo Monster.
You want to criticize ADD for overextending because it's a Baron, it's 26 minutes in the game. Remember he was killing Krugs when his outer bot lane turret was still alive, but the vision placed by Kongdoo earlier is very fruitful. They do get the kill, they get 2 turrets. It was the tail end of the Baron play. In fact, it was afterwards, but so much gold has been injected into Kongdoo. We already said we're loving their 5v5. None of this would have been possible without picking up that Baron. But the bounty from Baron has been huge for Kongdoo Monster. And now it's actually a return to the split push and getting value out of the Gnar in the 1v1. Because the moment you start talking about 5v5s, I do a double take, and I'm like, I'm not 100% sure MVP can win those.
And let's talk about a Gnar for just for a minute, and we talked about the reliance they had with such a fed Gnar early in the game, and they're rotating on with still the rest of the 4 members of MVP are still killless. So that means the power level still, I have to say, is towards the Gnar. So if Gnar dies out just like that, just from split pushing, what does MVP have to just move forward with what they have?
They have one thing that's a little bit different, that looks a bit askew from your expectations about builds. Notice that Sejuani is a champion that's built up the Zeke's Converge, not on support. Secret doesn't have one as Tahm Kench needs to go for other items. They do have a 3-item Xayah with both Knight's Vow and Zeke's Convergence, so not every 4v4 I think Kongdoo Monster wins. I think if Zach messes up his engage, there's definitely engages they lose, even if you factor in the Cannon Barrage coming in. But I take your point. You should focus on where most of the gold is. You should remember that Gnar has built for the 1v1 and not the 5v5 like we usually see. All is not lost yet for MVP, but another 5-10 minutes, even that sliver of good fortune might be gone.
So Ian just trying to hide in this bush. AD just supporting from the flank there. But otherwise, back into grouped mode once again for these 2 teams, MVP and Kongdoo Monster. They really want to look for a team fight here. Now we're starting to approach this 30-minute mark where slowly Kongdoo Monster are starting to reach their power level. Another Ocean Drake we do see here. This time I feel like I might go over to Kongdoo Monster.
G is a gold lead for the Gangplank. Praise Parlay, we'll say. And Kongdoo Monster will just pick up the Ocean. It's only an Ocean Drake, so not a huge contest coming in. Well, that is the 4th spawn of the game. 3-3. Small gold lead, about 2,000 gold. Basically, the Gangplank's gold lead is the difference between the two teams. You're wondering about the item build from Roach, so we spent so much time talking about the Gnar. Is again this more safety-focused GP. He's not going for what Tal was preferring, for example. He was a big fan of Essence Reaver, IE, into team-fighting barrels. This is much more about don't want to die in the side lane. And again, you look at the items on ADD, and I tend to agree about not dying as much as possible.
It really is the bannered up minion. Trying to just rush in here. ADD just backing off for the time being. Gonna give a free wave clear over to Roach there, including the banner minion. That's just gonna be right there for his eating. And
well, he does physical damage, so in general, not gonna be a happy time sending a banner of command minion into the GP. That one was coming from Ian a little bit earlier in the piece. All right, MVP. There are still team fights you win. You're very good at face checking because Gnar, Sejuani, Braum, and Sion can all walk up and get deep vision. The Baron was the start of your downfall. The second Baron could be the lifeline here for MVP. It spawns very soon. They're looking on Soul. One ult misses. Flash over there by Secret.
Good escape coming from Secret over there. Just flashing out of there after swallowing up his AD carry. So he's going to get out there just fine. And AD just trying to rotate back to the bot lane. Trying to have that 1v1 demeanor that he has been oppressing to the Gangplank so far, but it's going to be Soul in the front line. We actually do say once again, Gangplank ultimate coming through. Maybe Zaya just getting out of there as much as he can. A flash in, and it's going to be a lot of damage just coming through, but Ray's taking the most of it. Bloblets once again, ADD just trying to take as much of a trade he can. Down the late TP is going to be coming in from the Gangplank here. It's going to be leading to a lot of damage, and that's going to be Edge trying to just go forward here. 1v1 trade so far with Zac going down. The Soul with the Bear just trying to put out as much damage as he can beyond almost go down. Ian has been knocked to fruits as well, but right now, 4-man strong coming in from Kongdoo. Are they going to go for this Baron?
And they will. They have so much Baron damage on their side. They don't seem to even care about the Smite. Think there's going to be recalls on the side of MVP. Yep, they're back onto it.
You see the TP coming in from Ian, though.
They spot out the TP, and they can see Pilot on vision, so they'll back away. Azir, GP, Varus. You may not have the secure of 1,000 damage Smite, but damn do you have the damage to take it down. So, deep breath. Back off from that. They do get the TP from ADD through all of it. Zac is still dead. See what MVP make of this. They're definitely going to get at least priority on the Baron.
From that team fight, we do see an indication of how strong this Kongdoo Monster comp can be. The further we get into the late game, we saw kind of a hint of that, what we saw with Soul putting out so much damage along with Edge on the Azir. Just a lot of damage if you give them free room, and Pilot just had to use ultimate to get out of all the CC that Kongdoo was trying to put in. But otherwise, team fight opportunity is going to be more different. More unfavorable for Kongdoo here.
On the Baron, they trust in that Baron damage. No Mountain Drakes, but plenty of damage on it. There is the spot check, 6,000 health on the Baron. We're seeing them close in. Sion jumps in.
Gonna just go for the Ian here, but it's gonna be swallowed up once again. Soul safe for now, and it's gonna be them just trapped up, and it's gonna be AoE damage and putting all the damage onto the Kongdoo Monster members here. Really nothing for Edge to do, trying to just poke damage as much as they can, but beyond. Missing out on this last opportunity to get that fruit right on. But you talked about the AoE damage that from the members from Kongdoo that couldn't escape the Baron pit, taking all the free shots coming from Pilot and the rest of his team, where MVP puts out so much damage, leading up to 2 kills and 2 Baron buffs lost for Kongdoo.
But they do get 3 Baron buffs, the Baron off the map, and they still have wave clear to try to stop there being anything like an inhibitor taken down. Remember, Ian has pretty low cooldown on his engage. They could still try to dive in with the Sion. They actually will keep up the inner turret. It isn't going to be one turret for MVP. Kongdoo Monster keep playing with fire around Baron, but they're excelling in the flames. They're not getting burned by them. Baron taken by Kongdoo. And MVP licking their wounds a little bit. You're right, they were grouped up. It looked like they could get something, but the something was only 2 kills. It's not the team wipe that would really justify the setup.
Just moving on with the transition of what we're seeing from the trend of the team fights here between the two teams, we're seeing a lot more confident on Kongdoo Monster, especially with all the damage they can have from the ADC and the mid laner. And really all about MVP with ADD. Otherwise, Zai just try to put out the damage, but really doesn't get much opportunities to when she's just blocked out from all the initial CCs that Kongdoo's trying to bring with their front line.
And I think opportunities is a very operative word to talk about, because how many opportunities has there been for ADD just ranged auto attack Roach and kill him? Almost none, because Kongdoo Monster are copying MVP and saying, let's make it all about our thing around the Baron, not make it about your split push at all. So the shoe is on the other foot. Kongdoo Monster this time successful again the fights that weren't possible in game number 1. Pushing in, they'd love to break the base with the second Baron. That's the minimum standard. They got a lot of damage, but the force, it's really only Zac diving into a turret, and that is risky for the side of Kongdoo Monster.
A little more difficult when it is the inhibitor turret that Kongdoo Monster's trying to go for, but Raze just on the side trying to distract as many member of MVP as possible. ADD, you see him very much on the front line, can go in if he can, and Narbar is going to be a little bit low for the time being, has to wait a little bit long before he can initiate. That might be the chance for Kongdoo Monster to pull off an attack here, and ADD now is going to be ready to go on the Mega. Let's see how he does, but
Sejuani got so little value, Joel. Only got the Devourer coming through from Secret. They back away, they're waiting for another minion wave, about a minute. So about this minion wave, maybe just the tail end of the next minion wave. Don't want to push now, but still, MVP know that. This is probably the time for Sion to ult.
Inhibitor turret is going to go down very, very low. If they just let them be, MVP is going to lose a turret. That's important here. But there's going to be a lot of fights coming out, and Edge is just going to go front here, trying to put in as much damage as he can, and just backs out here. Gonna get the inhibitor turret, but lose one member in trade. Raze does go down. Did not have the blow blitz. Pass it up at the time being. So one casualty, but the turret on the inhibitor is going to feel very good coming from Kongdoo Monster.
Both teams so respectful. You can see that one member goes down beyond in the front line. So Raze in the front line on the Zac. No blow blitz, instant death. They back away. MVP probably going to take a Mountain Drake on the back end. Honestly, it's probably frustrating for them. They'd love to take an Elder Dragon to answer, but the spawn was about 1 minute before. We will have a very late Elder spawn, around 41:15 into this game, and we'll see if the game is still going then. The items are there onto pilot. Only a Mercurial Scimitar away from being 6 items. Troll Ward spot for Soul. You'll notice that it is once again, the Relic Shields on tank junglers has been very common today. We saw 2 of them in our first game. Zac has it this game. It isn't purchased on Beyond. The reason for that is, you look on the side of Kongdoo Monster, they have less tankiness for face checking. Only Zac and Tom Kench can clear for vision. Whereas on the side of MVP, they may have less wards because they don't have the wards coming through from the Eye of the Watch as the game goes on. But they have 4 people that can laugh at a unwarded brush and face check it. So they don't necessarily need to go into an item that really is about delayed warding rather than instant combat efficiency, like what Beyond has been able to pick up in the Zeke's conversion.
We talked about the vision game between the 2 teams and Kongdoo necessitating a bigger vision area, a radius they didn't cover earlier in the game, but now starting to do so, especially with the Baron power plays. They have been pushing for quite a while now, so vision game now over to Kongdoo just for a bit. So MVP, how can they counter back with all the vision lost on the half side of their map?
So you're saying Kongdoo Monster wants to get a 3rd Baron, and I think, I take that point. It does feel like pushing up then backing off to a 3rd Baron. Baron's been their happy place. Bliss is the only word they associate with Baron in game number 2. But it was close. It was actually Azir killing the 2nd one. So the smite wasn't necessarily fully on point. We now get the confirmation that Baron spawns in just 2 minutes time. The hodgepodge damage build from ADD halted for a little bit with a Spectre's Cow. He's still about the 1v1, but he hasn't been able to get a 1v1 for about 20 minutes.
And I think they're going to allow him to Kongdoo Monster with gameplay with his friends for the entirety of his time now. Has not been traveling 1v1 for quite a amount of time with Kongdoo Monster. And Inhibitor, that's the next side target where Kongdoo Monster wants to get their next advantage, but without the Baron buff, it becomes a little bit more difficult to do so. And MVP, along with the Mana Minions, just trying to slow down Kongdoo Monster as much as they can, but slowing down might not be the best thing for MVP, as we do get it to the late game where Kongdoo Monster with Varus and also with the Azir can become very, very strong.
Again, the only light at the end of the tunnel for MVP is one you don't want to rely on. It's Kongdoo Monster's late game has fallen apart. They've had many advantages in different games and different times, and sadly kind of contrived to find a way to get the minimum out of their advantages and lose fights they were set up to win. So the inevitability factor that we always try to have, in the LCK, very high expectations on execution. Kongdoo have let us down enough times that while they are set up, they have a gold lead, they have the better 5v5 comp, you're never 100% giving the benefit of the doubt the side of Kongdoo, and their Baron smites have been close. Their Baron decisions good. The smites haven't necessarily been fully on board. So a third Baron, if it does come down to a smite fight, if they're a little bit less proactive, or if MVP checks it earlier, there still is the chance that all this good work, 38 minutes of good work from Kongdoo Monster, could mean little.
Has been the scoreboard going 7-5 in advantage of MVP, but it has been seemed like Kongdoo getting more of the advantage, especially in the macro game with so many more turrets have gathered for this team, and the vision advantage, as we keep mentioning, is really on the side of Kongdoo at the moment. MVP has to do a lot more work to get a fair share of their vision across the Baron pit, but otherwise, Kongdoo Monster really not feeling like they're rushed into fight here, but with MVP, they have to pull something to gain back their momentum.
Remember, they can face check, but they have less vision. We talked already about how there is no wards available for the Sejuani. They have no spot vision, no blue trinkets to check the pit. If they're going in, if Scion's face checking, they have to be ready to fight. Kongdoo Monster have actually taken away the control here. They're allowing MVP to start the Baron. It's already lower than half health.
KDC Gangplank on the bot lane. That's going to be them pushing up, but going to be a steal coming in from Raze, and that will be another Baron. Now going over to Kongdoo, this is going to be a lot bigger win than they got in the first two, and that's going to be more kills coming through. Edge is just going to be chasing left and right. Soldier's going to be flashing forward all by himself. Pilot's going to be going down. Roach is right there with him, so there's going to be a lot of kills going forward. But Soul is going to be right there onto Ian, the second kill coming towards the side of Kongdoo, and a Baron to foot, and that's going to be a huge win coming from Raze initially with that Baron steal.
Disastrous smite coming from beyond. It was way too early. I saw the health jump from 2 to 100 and then claimed on the side of Kongdoo Monster. Kongdoo could have got more, actually. They used the Abyssal Voyage to try to kill the Gnar. Probably should have focused on the free food in the Xayah in the front line. The game would have basically ended if the Xayah had died. The game may still end. They're pushing through mid.
It really is MVP making all the right decision to go for the Baron there. It definitely seemed like, even with the Gangplank ultimate, it made it a bit difficult for Kongdoo to get that steal there, but Raze proves us wrong once again that Kongdoo Monster, a team that wasn't really about the late game, really putting their focus hats on right now, and they're just trying to clear one inhibitor at a time, and second inhibitor going down, AD just jumping in there only to back out of knowing the fear that comes with so much power right now coming from the Kongdoo Monster late game.
First proactive call MVP have been able to make at 40-odd minutes into the game, and the execution, sadly for them, is botched. They don't pick up the Baron. Watch the smite fight here. It ends up being a good call. 14. Why is he smiting at 14-41? There's no smite that does that much damage, and it's just too early. It ends up being stolen by Raze. He gets the steal, and then it's the 5v5 fight in basically melee range of the enemy team. The only mistake after the flash is if they had just gone downwards. The Gnar was not the one you wanted to chase, but it is Baron for Kongdoo, third Baron of the game. And I guess we're still fighting because it's an Elder fight. It spawns in 10 seconds.
It's going to be an Elder spawning up here, and that's going to be a go button. We're a lot stronger right now. Kongdoo Monster, they could get an edge over MVP here, and could just start it up really, and Soul just waiting for the time to go forward here. Vision's going to be away from MVP at the moment, and trying to look for a way to slow them down as much as they can, but initially
they wait out the Mega Gnar. That's a small thing we should mention. They're still poking around. This is very much still trying to check who's awake and who's a little bit off here. They're making it about a fight. They don't necessarily need to. The sideways are in a great spot. Look at the size of the minion wave on the bot side. Hey, Sol, calm down. You're in the front line. They use the Devour, but for MVP to engage, they have to fully commit, then an Azir wall becomes behind them. And just like if Anivia's against tanks, you split the threats and it becomes hard. Now in the mid lane, finally the Elder Dragon is leashed.
A 5v4 scenario for Kongdoo Monster does give them the go button to go in, and ADD just trying to go in, and the rest of MVP just trying to steal down the Elder as much as they can from being behind. Raze, can he get another steal? And Beyond just going to go out of the pit here, and that's going to be a free Elder Drake coming in from Kongdoo Monster. Another huge advantage
trying
coming
to teleport away.
Ian just trying to get away as much as he can. It's going to be canceled right away with the ultimate coming from Azir, and that's going to be another casualty coming in from MVP, and a huge momentum loss now from MVP. How do they come back from losing so much in the terms of objective?
I mean, looks like the base is all happening in the meanwhile. Meanwhile, the Winions are pushing in. And the inhibitor down. They're coming in with more members. I think we're going to be going to a equal series in game number 3 as Kongdoo Monster have just about done enough. Let's see if it's right now.
And where we felt like Kongdoo would have made their mistakes in the late game, we saw MVP lose that starting from the Baron. Now this team fight that doesn't work out around the Elder Dragon pit, and that's going to be Kongdoo feeling very confident about their eventual final push that will get them the Nexus. This team fight will not go well, and Sonya seems like going through in a timepiece is going to be going forward for Beyond, but otherwise it's going to be the final push that will eventually get them the win here. I'm just going to ultimate down, trying to get away. ADD with a big Gnar ultimate, that's going to be the one that could get them the win here. Zach just going to bring all the members back, and Pilot is going to be the left here, and Pilot is going to go eventually down. And Roach is going to go down. That's the orange that will initiate the end, and that will be Kongdoo Monster bringing it back to a 1-1 series.
Oh boy, catch your breath, Joel. I think we're going late today in this particular series. MVP. The Baron buff had become your friend recently after being the bogey for MVP for years. Their Baron setups have gotten some criticism from myself in particular in this game. They couldn't get to the first 2 Barons, no RSVP. They got the RSVP for the 3rd one, but the smite was off. Ray stole it away, and from that passage of play, it led to an Elder and the end of the game in game number 2. Kongdoo Monster this time could make it all about them. Game 1, all about the split push. Game 2, all about the team fight from Kongdoo Monster. That means we get a full best of 3 potentially to decide which of these teams goes through. It is so great. We are the only region in the world still with summer promotions, and Kongdoo Monster and MVP are no closer to knowing who will go forward.
We thought MVP would have been on the forward route here. They definitely could have done so with the Baron pit. That was the right call to go with from MVP, only if they hadn't gotten it, but Beyond botches on the smite, and Kongdoo steals it away, and that will be the result oriented talking about Kongdoo Monster bringing it back to 1-1 series, but can they just extend that and kind of relive their chances of going back to the LCK Summer? Maybe the first time in their organization, and we can see Kongdoo Monster really putting an upset onto MVP here.
Credit to Kongdoo, they made some good adjustments, guys. Join us, game 3 after the break. We're all tied up. 1-1 Kongdoo Monster, MVP.